Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to MX Simulator, where today we're going to be doing the custom, or I guess actual replica, not even custom because it is the replica of the 2019 Thunder Valley National in Lakewood, Colorado, which is round number 3 of the Outdoor Nationals. And man, just like Supercross, I feel like where did the first 2 rounds of the series go? They're just blowing right on by us already. It seems like it's pretty crazy, but we are already at Thunder Valley, out of the California swing and on to Colorado. And I have always been a very big fan of Thunder Valley. I love the actual racetrack itself. Seems like it's got a pretty good flow. And then Colorado is obviously a very, beautiful state, and it's not too far outside of Denver, so right by a pretty major city, which is always good for a national to have a lot of people come by, because if you have one that's kind of way out in the boonies, sometimes it's a little bit tough to get massive troves of audience to drive 3-4 hours out to it. But yeah, Lakewood always is pretty stacked, and I have always rather enjoyed the national that they have there. I'm not going to this one. I will at some point go, but haven't gone yet. And yeah, I hope people that do go have a great time this weekend. It sounds like it's going to be pretty decent weather, mid 70s, partly cloudy. No real chance of thunderstorms or anything that could blow through, which is typical for Colorado. You can get those thunderstorms in the middle of summer, but that's not quite there yet. We're not quite in the middle of summer. I know that Denver, I think, had just gotten snow a couple weeks ago now, so we're not too far removed from that. But the weather itself should be pretty nice, and the track should wear in pretty good with the moisture that had rolled through with the snow and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to a great weekend of racing. As for this track, which the Race Factor Gaming track crew built, I did about 15 minutes of a moto on this track just by myself, put it rode on 4. That's why you see some lines already developed in. The track has obviously come stock a lot smoother. And I tried to make it a little bit bumpier to have a little bit more fun, and I left it rode on 4, so this is technically like the second half of a single player moto that I'll be playing today, and just figured it'd be a little bit nicer for you guys aesthetically to see the track kind of worn in a little bit more and continuing to wear in. And quite honestly, as flat as it was a little bit hard to get traction in some corners, so I wanted to dig the ruts in. In turn, it made the straightaways very bumpy, and I have an atrocious setup for outdoors right now that I need to get working on here soon. Yeah, gonna play it here, and we're gonna talk about real life nationals, real life motocross, what's going on, what's happening, and what is coming up. One thing I want to address before I do that, just finally, I've seen a couple people hint that they want to see me do an updated setup video. Guys, I am still, if you can believe it, running my 2017 SX setup, which is why it's terrible outdoors. So I haven't updated my setup myself. I'm still running the same one that I did for a video way back in 2017. Only some very minor changes to my advanced stability since I got a new controller. I was trying to kind of fix that a little bit. But once I kind of sit down, take a little bit more time to actually get a setup built for the outdoors that I feel comfortable with, maybe pawn one off a friend or two as well, I'll be sure to post an updated setup video, because I know you guys have been hunching for that one pretty hard, so I'll try to get it to you as fast as I can. But I need to actually get myself in business here and start playing this game a little bit more often, which I've been saying basically all year, so I guess we can only hope. But yeah, let's talk about some real life stuff. And again, just like last week with the Paula gameplay, it is pretty much going to be a review of Paula, preview of Colorado kind of thing, where we're midweek, halfway through from one round to the next, so might as well kind of talk about a little bit of both, and some expectations and what's going on. And just talking about Paula, Kawasaki basically domination. They won 3 of the 4 motos, got the ball rolling right now with both red plates again. Eli Tomac has found the groove that was missing, it seems, in the first moto at Hangtown, and at least for a little while it was missing, I felt, in the first moto at Paula too. Second moto, he just stalked Marvin like, I don't know, a tiger trying to catch a deer in the middle of the safari or whatever, but just kind of waited for his moment, got about halfway through the moto. It really seemed like as soon as the half-cross flag went out in the moto, Eli was like, time to go, and just worked his way around Marvin and kind of took off. I mean, Marvin did a decent job to stay with him. And overall, Marvin actually looked a lot better this week than he did at Hangtown. Obviously, that practice crash he had at Hangtown was maybe a little bit more dramatic and, kind of took a toll on him than initially was a thought, because he got up and, finished the practice then and still raced the motos in that. But yeah, he didn't look good at Hangtown, but looked a lot better at Paula, and I feel like that is just going to be completely wiped under the rug, because we obviously have to talk about how good Eli rode at Paula. He rode fantastic. I mean, that is the Eli Tomac that we're kind of always, when he's not on, and we're always looking to see that guy show back up. And at least this past weekend, it was there. He got the train rolling halfway through the first moto, and then the train just kept on rolling on through all the way through the day. 1-1 performance, takes back the points lead. And yeah, I mean, it's just the Eli Tomac freight train going through the field, both motos, basically. Seemed like Roczen got tired, which is kind of crappy, because it seemed like at Hangtown he wasn't tired. He looked like he was on top of the game all the way through. Yeah, he didn't have a gigantic lead in the first moto, and it wasn't like he had massive competition right from behind or anything like that, but it didn't seem like his late race, pace fell off as dramatically at Hangtown as it did at Paula. And then the second moto was almost kind of like worse, I would say. Like, he started up front with Marvin. Eli got around him, went after Marvin, got Marvin for the lead, obviously. And then Kenny almost fell back into the Osborne clutches a little bit, and Osborne was riding great, but I if I'm honest, I really thought that after we saw how good Kenny was at Hangtown, and honestly how good he was in the first moto for most of the race at Paula, that he should not be getting caught by Zach Osborne. I know Osborne's been riding fantastic to start the series, but a two-time outdoor champion in Roczen, when he's on, is not going to just get straight up caught by somebody who's in his second pro 450 moto or 450 national, basically, in Osborne. So that was a little discouraging to see, but I'm not quite ready to go back off the deep end with, well, his physical issues are back and we're screwed now. I'm not there, but just on a eye test, it did look a little bit worse than Hangtown to me for old Kenny. And the only thing I can hope is that it was really just a matter of he didn't feel the track, and as it got weathered, he was having a little bit more issues with comfort than it was fatigue. Now, I didn't hear anything specific from him about that, but if it is that, then obviously we'll be keen to keep an eye on him moving into Thunder Valley and feeling a lot healthier and a lot more comfortable, and maybe challenge for the wins again. But we'll have to see. Tomac looks really good. Obviously, home state race this weekend in Colorado, so I just don't see how you could bet against him, but I will discuss that in a moment. As for continuation of Paula discussion, I want to say that, I'm pretty truly impressed at this point with Jason Anderson's comeback. 2 rounds in, he has been obviously right in the mix of the top 5 guys, which at this point it's pretty clear. Well, there's like a top 6 grouping, but Webb wasn't really in the top 5 grouping, I would say, at Paula. Webb went 6-6 and was, got caught pretty late in the first moto by Osborne, who was decently far behind him and caught him, and then just was all by himself the entire second moto. But it seems like we have Tomac, Musquin, Roczen, Anderson, Osborne as this little 5 grouping, and certainly Webb will get back into that this little 5 group has already pretty noticeably established themselves as the guys in the series, and I think we'll see positions go interchangeably between those guys a lot, with Tomac probably winning the most, Kenny and Marvin probably splitting wins quite a bit when Tomac doesn't win, and then Anderson, Osborne, and probably Webb getting into the mix with some wins of their own at some point. But it, like I said, it just very clearly looks to me like those are the guys. Barcia has still come back from an injury, but I don't know if I necessarily see him coming back from this injury in full force before the season is over. He's not even close right now, so it's going to take even longer to get back to where he's going, or going to want to be at the end of the year, which is winning races like he did last year. And I don't know if I see that happening. So we have this nice 6 grouping that quite honestly, they've had great battles already, and we're only 4 races and 2 actual rounds into the season. But like I said with Anderson, I'm rather impressed that in this grouping of 5-6 guys that are clearly the front guys, he's just came right back in like no big deal. And there was a lot of speculation out there that the arm injury he had from Supercross and breaking it, that he had to go back into the doctors and get it worked on some more before it was actually fully healed. And he didn't get on the bike until only a couple weeks before Hangtown, which doesn't sound that bad, like a couple weeks to get going, but coming from a dead stop is a lot harder than trying to just get right mixed up into the middle of the season after an injury, when you can kind of come back when you're fully healthy. People were even saying Anderson might not be fully healthy, and yet here he is immediately challenging and looking rather comfortable in the mix. So that's what I mean is like, I didn't really expect that. I thought maybe like you would see a moto or two out of the first 4 that you were just like, wow, Anderson, like, that's cool. He's up in 4th, or that's cool. He's, got the whole shot and led for a while, but he dropped back late. And he'd eventually fall out of the top 5, but nope, top 5, all 4 motos to start the season. I think that's pretty damn good for somebody who is basically coming off the couch here amidst a bunch of guys that just took a championship down to the wire and are literally in full swing of their racecraft and whatnot. Yes, some guys like Webb and even Tomac maybe are a little bit off because they didn't have necessarily a lot of outdoor testing with the Supercross title coming down to the wire. But you ask any of those pros, it's pretty tough to have that little amount of time to get ready for a race and come back in and immediately be competitive. Like that Justin Barcia, a perfect example of that right now, where he took time off at the end of the year. And yeah, maybe he's not fully healthy like Anderson appears to be, but it's not even kind of comparable right now. Anderson is still way above him in pace, speed, racecraft already. Like it just looks a lot better. And that's definitely impressed me through the first 4 motos of the year. But the shining star obviously still has to be Eli Tomac. I mean, to win 3 of the first 4 motos, already looked like he may be getting back into the zone that he had last year, where he won, I think it was, 17 of the 24 motos or so en route to the title. Talked about it a little bit in build up to the Nationals when we were still doing Supercross discussions, that like he has to be the favorite outdoors, and I'm not going to even jump away from that even in the slightest after the opening round, because I felt like it was great to see Kenny back, but I wasn't really worried because Tomac still was right there at the end of the day. And then here, he just walked through all the guys right at the end of that first moto and then took off in the second. So it's like, that seems to be good to me. I'm good with it. Looks like Tomac's found his mojo already 2 rounds into the series while everybody else is still regrouping. Marvin from the crash, Kenny fatigue issues, Anderson's coming off the couch. Osborne is maybe the guy that looks like the most ready to go, I would say, but I would say pace-wise is not on the same level as a Tomac or even maybe a Musquin right now when they start up front. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Tomac's looking pretty tough to beat, but it is Eli Tomac, and he perennially disappoints us when you least expect it. I feel like just when you feel like everything's figured out and you've got it and you know what to expect out of him, he does the opposite. And it's kind of like the anti-Chad Reed for the last 10 years, where it's like Chad Reed, the second you write him off, he just kills you. He'll just win a race out of nowhere, or get a podium when you least expect it or something like that. Eli Tomac, when you think, dude, this guy's got everything rolling and figured out and stuff like that, he'll finish 8th the next week, and it'll be right back to square one with what the heck's going on. So I don't think that's where we are with Eli, but again, I will hesitate to say that I am already on board the freight train that Eli's been driving here, that he is out of here for the championship, because it is only, a 4-point lead, and we're only 2 rounds into the series, and there's a lot of racing left to happen. I think this could be a little bit more dramatic than just a runaway series, I feel, with how much competition there is this year. So I'm excited to see what happens at Lakewood. Regardless, I would still have to say Tomac has got to be the favorite for a dominating 1-1 performance in his home state on a track that he's probably pretty comfortable at. He's won before and has the red backgrounds again. I I would actually think if there's anybody that's going to challenge him this weekend, I would put the nod onto Musquin. He flipped a switch from Hangtown to Pala, like I had mentioned, and I think Marvin has like the distinct advantage at elevation, like in Colorado, because his line selection is so good and he carries so much speed into every corner. That kind of helps a lot when you're a little bit down on power, which these 450s really aren't that badly down on power. The 250Fs seem to be the bike that struggles the most once we go to Colorado, but I think Marvin's line selection is really key to carrying speed on a track that speed is going to be at a premium almost. So if it's not Tomac, I got Marvin, but as always, I'm probably going to be wrong, and I'm sure that Blake Baggett will sweep the motos, of course. Just, that's how it goes in motocross. Just when you think something's exactly how it's supposed to be, it goes the other direction. That'd be sick if Baggett did sweep the motos, though. I'd be pretty stoked about that, because then we add more parity to the series, and 3 different winners after 3 rounds. But yeah, 250 class from Pala. Very, very, very impressed with like the resiliency, I would say, of Adam Cianciarulo thus far. Obviously winning Hangtown after the dramatic Supercross loss was kind of like a big talking point, but he hasn't really, I felt, put much of a foot wrong to start the season. I think the only thing that has really been a negative on his scorecard at this point was he got into a little bit of I wouldn't even call it a verbal altercation. It was just more of a vivacious discussion in the press conference when Dylan Ferrandis had brought up that he got bumped and taken down in the first race, and that's what put him so far back, which is true. And the person that did it happened to be on that number 92 red plate Kawasaki, and so he just kept kind of hinting at, maybe he's a little upset from Supercross or what. I don't know if that could have been a joke from Ferrandis, but Cianciarulo very clearly kind of shot back and was like, I didn't do it on purpose. I would never do that, and apologized, and we moved on. But again, that seems to be the only blemish, because yes, he's only won 2 of the 4 motos, but he's finished second, or no, did he finish third in that first moto? Yeah, because Hampshire finished second. So he's finished 3-2-1-1 basically, if you count up all the scores. And even in the first moto at Pala, he wasn't really close until near the end, and just kept chugging away and running good, consistent lap times. And by the end of the moto, you could have fooled me. He could have been there the whole time. But really, most of the moto, it seemed like we were watching Nichols hovering around Cooper, but not quite able to get to him. And then after Lawrence and Smith, how do I always mess it up? His Instagram account is Smitty28. So I always mess it up because I want to call him Smitty, but his last name's Smith, Jordan Smith. Once him and Lawrence got together, when Lawrence's bike kind of blew up, or the oil cap had fallen off, or whatever the hell happened to that Geico Honda, and they went down, it was really just the Star Yamahas out front just kind of cruising, and slowly but surely Hampshire, Sexton, Cianciarulo all started closing the gap. And then Cianciarulo, before you knew it, was around Sexton, and then they all started moving around Nichols, and then before you knew it, Hampshire was in second, and Cianciarulo was putting the pressure on him for second, and they almost caught Justin Cooper. So it was like the entire moto, Cianciarulo was pretty clearly like the fastest guy on the track, because by the end of it, he went from pretty far behind Hampshire and Cooper to ending up right behind them and just losing the moto. And then the second moto, he won, and I will admit, I think Lawrence was the better guy on the track, and I would have loved to see how he did if his bike didn't blow up in the first race, because I think he had a pretty good shot at winning the overall at Pala. But Lawrence kind of blew it, gets the lead after catching and passing AC, and crashes all by himself, and then almost catches AC again, but just kind of witty veteran move from AC, just kind of let him get to him and then manage a small little gap. Lawrence obviously got, I think, a little bit tight near the end, just because he had to ride his butt off both times to catch Cianciarulo. And I think AC probably knew that and just took advantage of the situation to open up a small gap at the end and win the second moto. 3-1, wins the first 2 overalls of the year. Yeah, the points lead may not be huge because Justin Cooper's almost matched him toe for toe on the other half of the motos, but Cianciarulo's looking good, I'll admit. That is pretty impressive to turn his mentality around that quickly to immediately go back to winning ways. And it seems like his maturity level has almost gotten better after losing the title. Like, no longer is he making dumb, stupid mistakes or tip overs or falls or whatever. He's just out there putting motos in and slowly working his way into contention by the end of motos, which I think is crucial if he's going to have a championship run outdoors here. Whether that happens once we go east, well, obviously I have to see. I think Cooper has been way too close to winning races at this point to not get one, and I think one is coming. I called it at Paula, didn't happen. Obviously won the first moto just like he did at Hangtown, but the second moto seems to be his kryptonite a little bit, almost like he gets complacent with winning the first moto and doesn't quite have the fire inside of him in the second one. So I think if he can turn that around, that'll be pretty huge, but I worry that it is kind of just the status quo with him, and we have to see almost like a dominating performance out of him in the first moto to almost be sold going into the second moto that he has a shot at winning again, because right now it's been 2 for 2 where he barely hung on for the win in the first race, and it was a great ride, no question. But the second he didn't get the whole shot, it looked like he was just one of the guys, and, you know, not a Cianciarulo type where he was able to charge forward and get guys late and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, championship-wise, it's close. I think mentality-wise, it's not as close, but we'll have to see. I think maybe Cooper can figure things out as we get to the second, or, you know, into the middle part of the season, kind of the second quarter of the season after this round. Star bikes are good. I think he's going to whole shot both motos this week, and if that's the case, I think he may win this week. Cianciarulo's been pretty good too. Nichols, I don't know. This is tough. We need to see Ferrandis step his game up. There's like 4 or 5 different guys I feel like that have like plenty of reason to want to win this weekend, to, you know, assert almost a level of dominance as we move the series east after this one. It's going to be pretty interesting to watch. I'm very curious because this 250 class seems more wide open to me than the 450 class, even though we've had the same amount of moto winners in that there's 2 different winners in both classes thus far to start the year. It still seems like the 250 class is more wide open, and that, I think, makes it a little bit more interesting to watch sometimes than the 450s. But the 450s have been good too, no disrespect. I would still say it's probably a Tomac Cianciarulo type of weekend just because of the confidence that they're carrying, points leaders, etc., etc. But man, I think Justin Cooper's going to win one of these things soon. And so if I have to say it's not Cianciarulo, I would say it is Cooper who's going to take it this weekend. Now, Hunter Lawrence, I wanted to dedicate a good part of the end of the video here talking about him because I just briefly highlighted him for a second. He was like the man that second moto, if I'm honest. He should have won that moto. Brain fart, crashed all by himself in the lead. But the ability to stalk the child prodigy in Adam Cianciarulo as long as he did, pick up the intensity at the halfway part of the race, catch, pass, and start gapping him was very impressive to me for only his 4th moto in the USA. Yes, he has experience from the GPs. He's won GPs. But I'll tell you guys, I mean, he wasn't the guy in GPs. And he wasn't really in the mix of the guys either. Last year in the GPs, it was basically Husqvarna or KTM. It was Prado, Jonas battling for the world title in MX2. Thomas Covington and Thomas Kjær Olsen always seemed to be disputing 3rd and 4th. And then it was the rest. And sometimes that was Lawrence, sometimes that was Ben Watson. And like I said, like, yeah, he won some GPs and some motos, but I was kind of thinking it would take him a little bit longer to get to race-winning speed and level in the USA. To do it 4 motos in, I'm kind of shocked, honestly. Not shocked that he can do it. I think that was going to come for sure eventually. But this quickly is a little impressive to me. And I think that's maybe a testament to just the GPs themselves, but definitely a testament to the fact that Lawrence, I think, is putting in maximum effort now that he's in the USA. I think he had a really rough year with 114 Motorsports last year in Europe, and he couldn't get the bike dialed in. His confidence was shot. Now that he's on like just such a full factory effort and so much support around him in the USA and really living his dream at this point, I think he's maybe more comfortable than he's ever been, including in his GP victories. And that could be dangerous moving forward. Now, the caveat I will say to his performance at Pala is the same thing that I kind of feel has to be discussed every time we discuss GPs versus the USA, and how impressive it is when a GP guy can do well in the USA, and that is track time. So in the GPs, for those of you that don't watch it in the USA side, they basically get like 4 practices. They get like an untimed free practice, 2 timed sessions, and then like a warm-up session or something like that, and then a qualifying race. It might only be 3 on Saturday and then a qualifying race, but they definitely get a morning warm-up on Sunday. And the qualifying race is 20 minutes plus a lap, which is almost as much time as the USA-based riders get to actually see a track before they race it. Not just including, qualifying practice. Like, they get 2 15-minute sessions basically, which equates to about 30 minutes, which, a 20 plus 1 is about 22 to 25 minutes depending on the range, and that's just the qualifying race that they do in GPs. They still have 2 morning warm-ups, 2 free qualifying sessions or whatever, and they just get a gallon load of track time. So by the time the gate drops on Sunday for the points, these guys know the track really well. They have worked on their setup all weekend. They have gotten dialed on where the lines are developing. They know the track. And it's one thing that really impressed me going back to, it's happened a lot of times, but Clement Desalle, when he came and raced the U.S. National at Unadilla in 2010, that would have been, and he went 2-2 and led 20 minutes of the second moto and looked almost more comfortable here than he did on a GP track. That's why I was immediately like, dude, that is like impossible. Hurling's winning at Indiana was almost impossible too, because of the limited track time. Again, like, now there's press day and stuff like that, which they can go to and get more track time, but still, the reason I'm bringing this all up is because Hunter Lawrence probably had more time at Pala than any other track in the United States leading up to the Nationals. I saw him a lot there myself. Obviously, we've seen videos and things like that of him there. He tested at Pala in 2018 when he rode for 114 Motorsports. Like, he took a couple GPs off, just came out here and just tested at Pala. Like, that's just a track he went to and tested at, getting ready for more GP racing. He knew this track very well. He knew the dirt. Yes, the track layout was different, but just knowing how the dirt breaks down and how to attack it and where it gives and stuff like that is huge. And yes, all the riders around him know the track well too, but that's an advantage I think the GP guys have always had over the USA-based riders, is that when they have a lot of track knowledge, they know how to use every ounce of the track to their advantage. The USA riders like to hit the same line as hard as they can over and 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 over again until it's useless. GP riders will get halfway through a moto, they'll realize one of the ruts that they were using has just a notch in it. It's not bad. It maybe slows them down 1/10 of a second in the corner. They'll immediately be like, time to start looking for a different line. Let me, swoop around this way and carve to the outside and lay into this rut and see how that feels. And if it didn't work, next lap I'll go farther inside than I was and see how that feels. And they just search around. They just go everywhere and anywhere they can think to hit the racetrack. And again, that's why I'm saying you almost have to take Lawrence's great ride in that second moto with a grain of salt, because yeah, it was great, but he knows the track, he knows the surface, he knows the dirt, and I just am a little concerned that he carries the same type of pace into Thunder Valley that he's never ridden at before. He doesn't know the dirt. I don't even know if he's been to Colorado in his life. That is, a disadvantage for someone just coming into the series for the first time that doesn't know the tracks. And if he does what he did at Pala again at Thunder Valley, I'm aboard the train. Like, I think he'll go east and start winning races no problem, and right back in the mix, and maybe, just maybe, claw himself out of this massive hole and challenge for the title. But he's pretty deep in the hole. Obviously, 2 finishes outside of the top 10, one of them being a DNF. 4 motos into the season is not something that looks championship worthy, but still a lot of racing left to happen. So I will keep my reservations for Lawrence and just say that I'm very stoked to see how fast he's picked up the American pace of things, but we'll see going forward if that continues to be the trend when he hits tracks that he doesn't know. I'm looking forward to seeing that because I think he is the real deal, and I would like to believe that he's going to be good on these good tracks, or on these tracks that he's not used to, I should say. But yeah, we'll see. So that's a synopsis of Pala / going into Thunder Valley while I play Thunder Valley, the national here in game. 30 minutes of motoing it down, just trying to feel out the lines, crashing a bunch, and eventually hating my setup so much that I finally decided to change it after I overjumped that triple for the 140th time. So thanks guys again for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, some commentary, a little bit of action, and be sure to download the track in the description below if you guys would like to try it out for yourself. But as always, Kellen here on Start Your Systems, signing off for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.